The world held its breath. June Kwan's application, simply called the Choir, was pushed to every connected device on the planet. Operating systems, firewalls, and corporate firewalls were overridden by a unified global command. Instructions were translated into thousands of languages. The message was clear. In 24 hours, at the precise moment the sun reached its zenith over the Pacific Ocean, everyone who could was to open the app, follow the guidance, and think. The explanation of the swarm was shared openly, simply, and with terrifying clarity. The alien ships above were not the enemy. The enemy was silence, and the end of all thought. People understood fear. They understood hiding. For the first time in history, the world had a single, common purpose: to be loudly, gloriously, and invisibly human. On the day, Jiho Park stood on a crowded Seoul street, his phone in his hand. Around him, millions of others did the same. The city was silent, not with fear, but with concentration. On screens everywhere, a simple countdown ticked away. The Velaner fleet had repositioned. Their ships had moved into even tighter formation, their engines glowing with a low power, ready to merge their own dampening fields with the hoped-for human signal. It was an act of supreme trust. They were making themselves blind and deaf, placing their fate entirely into the chaotic hands of humanity. In her lab, June watched a global map. Dots representing network nodes began to light up, from green to yellow to a brilliant blue, as they came online and accepted the modified programming. The web of light grew, connecting continents, crossing oceans. It was beautiful. In Siberia, near the cold wreckage of the fallen ship, Hana Lee and Captain Tae Song also held their phones. They stood in the quiet snow, looking up at the sky where the swarm would soon be visible. "Just think," Hannah whispered. "Think of anything." On the Galactic Council's observation ship, just outside the danger zone, the diplomats and scholars watched their sensors. The swarm was now visible on their screens. A vast, shimmering distortion, like a stain on space, was entering the solar system. It moved slowly, inevitably, towards the bright noise of the Velaner fleet and the blue planet behind it. Elder Elrin bowed his head. He had seen the swarm consume a dozen worlds. He expected to see another. The countdown reached 0. On Gio's phone. A soft tone sounded. The screen displayed a swirling, abstract pattern of colors. A gentle, wordless prompt in the form of music and light began. It did not tell him what to think. It simply created a space for thought. He thought of his daughter's laugh. He thought of a complex equation from school he'd never solved. He thought of the taste of his mother's cooking and the sharp, metallic smell of the alien wreck. He felt a surge of fear, of hope, of love, of anger at the absurdity of it all. He let his mind race, chaotic and free, all around the world. 7 billion people did the same. A farmer in Kenya thought of the feel of dry soil. A student in Brazil thought of a difficult guitar. Chord. An old woman in Japan remembered the smell of cherry. Blossoms. A tired doctor in London focused on a complicated diagnosis. Billions of unique, unlinked, beautiful thoughts. June's map exploded into light. Every node turned a searing, brilliant white. The global network, stressed to its absolute limit, hummed with a new kind of data, not ones and zeros, but the amplified echo of raw consciousness. A carrier wave of pure, chaotic psychic noise rose from the planet, tuned and shaped by Velaner technology into a shield. To human senses, nothing changed. The sky remained the sky, but to the sensors on the council ship, something miraculous happened. The planet Earth did not disappear. Instead, a wall of static erupted from it. A shimmering, invisible bubble of jumbled energy expanded rapidly, enveloping the Velanor fleet. Where there had been the clear, distinct neural signatures of the Velaner ships, there was now a blur, a roar of white noise. The swarm reached the outer edge of the bubble. It did not stop, but it slowed. It pressed against the psychic barrier. The distortion wave rippled and churned at the edge of the static, confused. It could sense the rich energy of the Velaner minds somewhere within, but it could not find them. It was like hearing a whisper in a hurricane. The shield held. The swarm probed, searching for a weakness, a clean signal to latch onto. It found only the endless, fascinating, chaotic noise of humanity. After what felt like an eternity, the shimmering distortion began to move. It shifted direction, sliding around the edge of the buzzing static field, and continued its slow, hungry journey past the solar system, into the deep black. Searching for clearer prey. It was gone. The silence that followed was different. It was the silence of exhaustion, of relief, of awe. On the streets of Seoul, Jiho's phone screen went dark. He looked up. The Velanar ship still hung in the sky. But then it did something new. Its dark surface began to glow with a soft, pulsing blue light. Then the next ship did the same. And the next. Across the globe, every Velanar vessel lit up in the same gentle rhythm. It was not a weapon. It was a signal. A thank you. In the council observation chamber, there was no sound for a long moment. Scholar Myra was the first to speak, her voice full of wonder. They did it. A pre-warp species. They unified not to build a weapon, but to create a song. A song that saved their would-be conquerors. Elder Elrin looked at the blue planet, now marked in the records, not as a primitive world, but as a sanctuary. We were wrong. Their strength was never in unity of purpose. It was in their glorious, chaotic diversity. That was the shield. Months later, Jiho Park stood on a balcony of a new diplomatic station, a joint human-Velanar construction in orbit. Beside him stood the Velanar ambassador, no longer a figure of fear, but a partner. They looked down at the earth, blue and serene. "We came thinking we would save a world," the ambassador said, his translated voice quiet. "We thought we were the strong ones, offering a harsh salvation. Instead, your world, and its wonderfully noisy minds, saved us all." Jiho smiled, looking at the planet below. He thought of the chaos, the arguments, the fear, and the final, unified act of 7 billion independent thoughts. "You weren't wrong about one thing," he said. "We are a divided world. We always will be. But sometimes division isn't a weakness. Sometimes it's just a very complicated kind of harmony." Below them, the earth turned, alive with noise and thought and life. It was not a conquest. It was a chorus. And for the first time, the whole galaxy was listening. The return from Siberia was a blur of speed and secrecy. Captain Tae-song and Dr. Hana Lee were flown directly to a nondescript government facility, debriefed under bright lights by grim-faced officials. The data crystal from the Velanar ship, containing the corrupted logs and the terrifying final recording, was analyzed by 100 different experts. The conclusion was unanimous, and world-shattering. Jiho Park received the summary in a secure briefing room in Seoul. His hands were cold as he read the report. The images of the crystalline corpses, the map of the approaching swarm, the translated pleas of the Velanar captain. It turned the invasion on its head. He was tasked with presenting this impossible truth to a secret emergency session of the United Nations Security Council. Not through video links, but in person, in a heavily guarded room in New York. The room was tense. World leaders and military commanders watched, their faces etched with exhaustion and suspicion, as Jiho stood at the podium. He was not a soldier or a scientist. He was a diplomat. His job was to make the unbelievable sound credible. Honored representatives, he began, his voice steady despite the weight in his chest. We have operated under a critical misunderstanding. The Valinor are not here to conquer Earth. They are here to hide on it. He played the key segments of the recording. The room watched in horrified silence as the swarm appeared on screen, as the Valinor crew was consumed. He showed the analysis of the neural static of humanity the chaotic, unlinked organic noise of 7 billion individual minds. To a predator that fed on clean, technologically amplified consciousness, Earth was not a beacon. It was a shadow, a place to disappear. Their invasion was a performance, Jiho explained, a show of strength to deter us and any other species from interfering while they set up their defensive perimeter. They needed to look like conquerors to maintain order, to keep us contained and predictable, the one thing that makes us invisible. They are not pointing their weapons at us. They are pointing them at the dark, at the thing that is coming for them. An American general stood up. So we just let them stay? We forgive an invasion because they're scared of a bigger fish? It is not forgiveness, Jiho replied. It is strategy. They have a fleet. We have a planet that is, by accident, a sanctuary. We need each other to survive. The debate that followed was loud and fractured. Some called for launching every nuclear weapon at the Valinor fleet now, while they were distracted. Others argued for complete surrender. It was chaos. Then a new signal was detected. It was not the looping Valinor message. It was a direct, tight beam transmission addressed to the United Nations, originating from the largest ship in the fleet. It requested a direct dialogue, a single channel. The Council, after a furious vote, agreed. Jiho found himself back at the podium, a microphone open to the stars. The screen remained dark, but a voice came through. It was different from the earlier synthesized tones. This voice was older, weary, and spoke through a human translator who had studied the language fragments for days. This is the voice of the Val-Nu remnant, it said. The title itself was a confession of weakness. You have recovered our lost ship. You now know our shame and our desperation. Jiho took a breath. We know you are fleeing. Why did you not ask for help? A long pause. Would you have believed a plea from a superior force? Would your fractured species have united to shelter us? Or would you have fought amongst yourselves, creating the very neural noise that hides you? We chose the guise of the invader. It was a role we knew how to play. It was a mistake. We are. Not good at asking. The raw honesty was disarming. The swarm, Jiho said. How long? It is at the edge of your solar system. It is slow, but it feeds as it comes. It will detect our fleet's neural signatures. It will come. Your world's chaotic biosignature is our only shield. But it is a passive shield. The swarm will still sense us unless... Unless what? Unless your signature is amplified, made into a wall, a psychic barrier. It is a theory. Our scientists believe the unique chaos of human thought, if focused and broadcast through your planet's magnetic field, could create a cloak of silence large enough to hide our fleet as well. The room erupted again. The idea was insane. Focus human thought? Broadcast it? In a lab in Daejeon, Jun Quan watched the proceedings on a monitor. She was an engineer, a specialist in global network infrastructure. While others heard science fiction, she heard a systems problem. She began typing, her fingers a blur. She pulled up schematics of the world's telecommunications grid, of underwater internet cables, of satellite arrays, of power line networks. She saw not separate systems, but a single, planetary-scale antenna. She requested and demanded a channel to the briefing. Her face, young and fierce, appeared on a split screen. It can work, she said, without introduction. We don't need new technology. We need to use what we have differently. Every cell tower, every fiber optic hub, every radio transmitter, they can be repurposed. We can modify them to carry a low-frequency carrier wave, tuned to the human brain's resonant frequency. It wouldn't transmit thoughts. It would amplify the brain's natural background, static, the noise that hides us. She shared her screens. Complex network maps transformed into a shimmering web of light around the globe. The signal is already there, 7 billion lines. We just need to unify it, give it a megaphone. We have the hardware. We need the software, and we need everyone to participate. How? Jiho asked, speaking for the whole world. A simple application, June said, downloaded to every phone, every computer. At a synchronized time, it guides people through a mental exercise. It doesn't matter what they think about math, memory, music, love, anger. The more complex and varied, the better. The app measures basic biometrics to confirm engagement and uses the device's transmitter to feed a tiny, harmless signal into the network nodes. Millions of tiny signals merged into one wave through the global infrastructure. Acquirer of chaos. The Valinar voice spoke again, a note of something like awe in its translated tone. The engineer describes it correctly. It is possible, but it requires global, voluntary cooperation, a unified act of will from a divided species. In our millennia of unity, we could not conceive of such a thing. The challenge hung in the air. This was not a task for soldiers or politicians. This was a task for every person on Earth that the Security Council voted. There was no other choice. They would work with the Valinar on a single desperate plan. The Valinar would provide the precise frequency data, the shield specifications. Humanity would provide the will, the noise, and the network. As the connection ended, Jiho looked out the window of the briefing room. The sky was darkening. One of the dagger-shaped Valinar ships was visible, a silent sentinel high above the city. He no longer saw an invader. He saw a lifeboat, desperately clinging to a rock in a rising flood. He thought of June's plan. A global app. A synchronized moment of focused thought. Could it work? Could 7 billion strangers, with all their different languages, beliefs, and fears, come together to make a single silent shout into the void? They had to try. The alternative was to be found and to be consumed. The invasion was over. The partnership, however fragile and strange, had begun. The next move was not up to the generals or the aliens. It was up to everyone. The frozen taiga of Siberia was a sea of silent white and green. The crash site was not a crater, but a long, terrible scar torn through the ancient trees. Smoke, thin and gray against the pale sky, rose from the wreckage. The alien ship was a broken spine of dark metal, its surfaces not reflecting light, but seeming to drink it in. The air crackled with a strange, static energy that made the hairs on the back of the neck stand up. The first humans to reach it were not soldiers. A joint science and security team had been assembled in brutal haste. The Russian Mi-8 helicopter that carried them set down 2 kilometers away, its pilots refusing to go closer due to the erratic energy readings. The team moved in on foot, a line of bulky figures in Arctic survival gear. Leading the security detail was Captain Tae-song of the Korean Special Forces. His face was grim behind his goggles, his breath frosting in the air. His orders were simple: secure the site, protect the scientists, and recover any technology or intelligence, no matter how small. Walking beside him, her steps quick and nervous in the deep snow, was Hana Lee. She was a xenobiologist, one of the few people on the planet whose job was to theorize about alien life. Now she was walking towards the real thing. Energy readings are off the scale, but fading, one of the technicians said, his voice crackling over the radio. It's not radiation. It's something else, like a burnt-out electrical field. Keep scanning, Tay ordered. No one touches anything until Dr. Lee says it's safe. They reached the edge of the scar. The scale of the ship was even more imposing up close. It was sleek, organic-looking, and utterly dead. A large section of the hull had been peeled open like the skin of a fruit. No light came from within. Tay gestured, and his team fanned out, weapons raised, scanning the trees. Hannah approached the torn hull, her scientific curiosity momentarily overcoming her fear. She pulled out a handheld scanner, one of many devices hastily modified to detect unknown energy signatures. The readings were chaotic, but one pattern was clear. The residual energy was concentrated inside the ship, not around it. "It's quiet," Hannah said. "Too quiet. No systems hum. No emergency lights. It's completely dead. Can we go in?" Tay asked. Hannah took a deep breath. "Yes, but slowly. The structure might be unstable." They entered through the gash in the hull. The interior was dark, illuminated only by the gray Siberian light filtering in and the beams of their headlamps. The corridors were narrow, the walls smooth and warm to the touch. The air was thick with a sharp ozone smell, mixed with something else, a sweet, metallic scent that Hannah recognized from her lab. It was the smell of biological matter exposed to intense energy. They found the first body around a corner dot. It was a Velaner, strapped into a console chair. It was tall, gray-skinned, with 4 long arms and the same 4 dark eyes they had seen in the broadcast. But the eyes were wide open, milky, and blank. Strange, vein-like patterns of crystalline black material covered its face and hands, seeming to grow from inside its skin and fuse with the console itself. It looked less like a corpse and more like a grotesque statue, merged with its machine. Hannah gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. "Don't touch it," she whispered. "The biosignature. It's not just dead. It's integrated. Its nervous system is fused with the ship's circuitry." Tay looked around. They found more bodies in other rooms, all in the same state, frozen at their posts, crystalline growths linking them permanently to their stations. There was no sign of violence, no burns or wounds. It was as if the ship itself had turned on its crew and consumed them from the inside out. "This wasn't the crash," Hannah said, her voice shaky but analytical. "This happened before. This is what caused the crash. A catastrophic bioelectrical feedback loop. Their technology is neurally linked. Something attacked that link. They pushed deeper into the ship towards what they guessed was the main data core. The door was sealed, but a terminal next to it was still flickering with faint light. One of the few pieces of technology not completely dead." Hannah examined it. The interface was alien, but it was clearly designed for tactile input. She pulled a multi-tool from her belt and carefully exposed some wiring, connecting a portable battery. The screen brightened. Symbols scrolled past, unintelligible. "It's trying to run a diagnostic," Hannah murmured. "It's corrupted, but maybe we can access the logs." The last recordings. She worked with a focused desperation, bypassing security protocols that were failing anyway. Tay stood guard, his eyes darting into the shadows. After several tense minutes, the screen changed. It showed a star map, then a visual recording. The image was from the ship's external cameras. It showed the vastness of space, the Velnar fleet in formation around a beautiful blue planet Earth. Then the view changed. It showed a different sector of space, far away. A wave of something was moving through the stars. It was not ships. It was a cloud, a shimmering, colorless distortion, like heat haze on a desert road. As it passed over a star, the star didn't go out, but it seemed dim, as if its light was being muffled. A voice, strained and full of static, spoke in Valaner language. Hana's translation device, loaded with linguistic data from the repeated broadcasts, struggled, then produced broken English. Swarm. Perimeter breach. Sector Gamma lost. Neural consumption complete. No detection of biosignatures in. Soul system. Anomalous silence. Only refuge. Must reach the quiet planet. Shield the mines. Final directive. Establish perimeter. Protect the silence at all costs. The recording cut to a different scene. The bridge of this very ship. The crew was alert, working. Then, alarms flashed. The same shimmering distortion appeared on their internal sensors. The crew began to convulse, the black crystalline veins erupting from their skin, crawling towards the ship's systems. The captain, his 4 eyes wide with a terror that transcended species, looked directly at the recorder. They found us. They followed the signal. They are in the wires. Tell the fleet. Hold the line. Protect the quiet world. It is the only... His words dissolved into a scream as the black veins covered his face. The screen filled with static and died. Hana stumbled back from the terminal, her heart pounding. Tay caught her arm, his own face rigid with shock. They weren't lying about the assimilation. Hana breathed, her mind racing to piece it together. But not by them. By something else. This swarm. It consumes advanced neural energy. It rides on signals in technology. The Velanar, their ships are linked to their minds. It's a buffet for this thing. Tay understood the military implications instantly. They weren't invading. They were retreating. They found a place this swarm thing can't see. Us. Hana nodded, pointing a trembling finger back at the frozen crew. Our brains. Human brains. We're noisy, chaotic, emotional. We don't have neural links to our machines. To this swarm, we must be invisible. Like static on a radio, hiding a clear signal. Earth isn't a target. It's a bomb shelter. And they crashed the party to get inside. She looked at the data on the screen, at the star map showing the approaching swarm. They're not pointing their guns at us, Captain. They're forming a wall. They're trying to protect their only refuge. And they're losing. The swarm is already picking off their ships, one by one, from the inside. The reality of the situation settled over them, colder than the Siberian air. The alien fleet in the sky wasn't an occupation force. It was a desperate, last-stand garrison. And they had just let one of their own ships die to protect their secret. To avoid panicking the very beings they were trying to save. We have to tell everyone, Hana said. Tay looked at the dead Valaner captain, fused to his chair. He gave a slow, solemn nod. We have to tell them that the end of the world is coming, and the only ones who can stop it are the people it doesn't even know are here. The silence from the ships lasted for 3 days. It was a global, crushing silence. The initial panic had settled into a numb, watchful dread. People went to work, but no one worked. Schools were closed. Supermarkets had been emptied in the first hours. The world existed in a state of suspended animation. Every eye turned upward. In the Galactic Council's observation chamber, the mood was one of profound confusion. The stealth probe had sent back clear images of the Valinor fleet. Hundreds of capital ships. Thousands of support vessels, arranged in a precise, layered sphere around Earth. It was a textbook invasion formation. But only half of one. Scholar Mlara pointed at the holographic display. Their primary planetary assault carriers are holding back. See? Here and here. They are not in optimal positions for a surface bombardment or troop deployment. They are nested behind their own defensive screens. Counselor Bren grunted. They are being cautious. assessing the primitive defenses. What defenses? Mlara countered, her feathers ruffling. The humans have scattered orbital satellites and a few armed space stations with kinetic projectile weapons. The Velinar could eliminate them in a microcycle. Yet they do not. And look at their weapon orientations. Elder Elrin zoomed the display. The data tags on each Velinar warship showed the direction of their primary energy cannons. A pattern emerged, so clear it was shocking. Nearly 80% of the fleet's major guns were not aimed at the planet below. They were aimed outward, into the void of space. They are not pointing at their target, Elder Elrin said quietly. They are forming a defensive perimeter, as if they are expecting an attack from elsewhere. It is a show of force, Brent insisted, but his voice lacked conviction. A display to cow the humans. They are waiting for surrender. Then why not ask for one? Lara asked. They have not transmitted a single demand, a single ultimatum. They have only said prepare for subjugation on a loop. It is illogical. It is, as you said, Mad. The Council decided to send an observer. Not a ship, but a single diplomat under a white flag, to approach the Velinar command vessel and ask directly and outside of formal channels what in the name of the stars they thought they were doing. On Earth, the pressure of the silence was breaking things. Governments were fracturing. Conspiracy theories were the only currency. Some said it was a secret human project. Others said it was the angels, or the demons in a secure underground facility outside Seoul. A different kind of work was happening. The images from Mauna Kea had gotten through. Yuna Kim and Min Cho had been brought in by the Korean Intelligence Service, along with experts from around the world. They sat in a crowded, noisy room filled with screens, trying to make sense of the enemy's posture. Ji-ho Park was there too, his suit rumpled, acting as a liaison between the scientists and the military. He watched as Min pulled up a global map, plotting the positions of every visible ship. They're not random, Min said, his voice hoarse from lack of sleep. His screen showed a shimmering net of light over the planet. This is a grid, a specific mathematical formation. Here, over the Pacific, the gaps are larger. Here, over the continents, the coverage is dense. It's not a military occupation grid. It's a blanket. A gruff American Air Force general, General Howe, leaned over the table. A blanket to smother us? To block communications? No, sir, Yuna spoke up. She looked younger than everyone in the room, and her voice was soft, but it carried. They are not jamming us. Our satellites still work. Our radios work. They are not interfering with our technology at all. They are just here. And look at the energy signatures. She brought up a different display, showing the faint readings her astronomy equipment had captured. They are emitting a low-level field. It's not a weapon. It's more like a scanner or a dampening field. But it's focused up, not down. General Howe shook his head. That makes no tactical sense. You don't invade a planet and then scan empty space. Ji-ho had been silent, studying the faces in the room, listening to the translated reports from other nations. He cleared his throat. Excuse me, General, may I? He stepped to the main screen. We are thinking like humans. We think an invasion means landing, fighting, taking. What if, for them, it does not? He pulled up the news feed from New York, frozen on an image of a sleek, dark ship against a blue sky. They have not landed a single soldier. They have not destroyed a single power plant, a single communication hub, a single military base. They have not tried to contact our leaders to negotiate a surrender. An invader wants something. What do these invaders want? They have taken nothing. They have only positioned themselves. Min's eyes widened. He started typing furiously, correlating data. Jiho is right. Their formation is defensive. Look at the concentration of heavy battleships. They are clustered here at the Lagrangian points. These are stable orbital positions. They are not staging areas for a drop. They are fortifications. They are guarding these points in space. Guarding from what? The general asked, exasperated. Before anyone could answer, the main screen in the room flickered. The global map was replaced by a universal pulsing symbol, followed by a voice. It was the same synthesized, toneless voice that had been broadcasting for days. But this time, the message was different. People of Earth, your assimilation is required. Do not attempt to leave your atmosphere. Compliance ensures survival. Resistance is irrelevant. Then the screen returned to the map. The room was dead quiet. The message was not a demand for surrender. It was a statement of fact. Assimilation is required. They don't want to conquer us, Yuna whispered, the horror dawning on her. They want to keep us. At that moment, a young technician at the back of the room shouted, "Contact! Unknown vessel. It's not one of the big ones. It's small, and it's on a descent trajectory. Coming down fast. Calculating impact zone. It's going to hit the Tunguska region. Siberia." Panic erupted. Was this the first shot? The first landing party? General Howe started barking orders, demanding to get Russian authorities on the line, to scramble jets. But Min was staring at his instruments, his face pale. "Sir, it's not a controlled descent. It's tumbling, and I'm reading massive energy fluctuations. It's not attacking, sir. I think it's crashing." The news spread through the global network in seconds. An alien ship had fallen. It was not an act of war. It was an accident dot in the Galactic Council observer ship. Hovering just outside the Velinur cordon, the diplomat watched the same event on sensors. They saw the small Velinur vessel, a command and reconnaissance ship, suffer a sudden catastrophic systems failure. They saw it tumble out of formation, its engines dead, and plunge into the atmosphere, trailing fire and debris. They saw the rest of the Velinur fleet do nothing. Not a single ship broke formation to rescue or to recover. They held their defensive grid, rigid and silent. The council diplomat turned to his aide, his own theory of madness crumbling. They let it fall. They sacrificed their own ship and crew to maintain their position. No sane military does that. Something is protecting this planet that is more important than one of their own vessels. Something is out there, on Earth, in the briefing room. Jiho looked from Yuna's frightened face to Min's determined one, and then to the map of the crash site in the remote. Frozen forests of Siberia. That, Jiho said, pointing at the screen, is our first chance to understand. They are not talking. So we have to go and ask the questions in person. We have to see what they were so desperate to protect that they would let their own people die for it. The silent invasion had just gotten a very loud crack in its armor, and through that crack, the truth was waiting. The chamber of the Galactic Council was a silent, awe-inspiring place. Its dome showed a perfect view of the stars, and the air hummed with the quiet power of advanced technology. Representatives from a dozen major species sat at their curved consoles, their faces, or what passed for faces, showing calm focus. The day's agenda was minor. Trade disputes in the Cygnus sector, a petition for protectorate status from a new aquatic species. Routine dot, and the Velinur Imperium's ambassador requested the floor dot. This was unusual. The Vel-Anar were proud, militaristic, and often silent during these meetings, considering them beneath their notice. Ambassador Kaver was a tall, gray-skinned being with 4 dark, unblinking eyes. He moved to the central speaking platform with a stiff, formal gait. The council members watched, their curiosity mild. "Esteemed council," Kaver began, His voice a synthesized hum from his translation device. The Valinor Imperium, in its sovereign right, hereby announces a military action. We are mobilizing our 4th, 7th, and 9th fleets for a full planetary annexation. A soft murmur rippled through the chamber. Annexations were rare and messy. The head of the council, an elderly being from the peaceful Loron species named Elder Elrin, leaned forward. The council acknowledges the Valinor S announcement. For the record, please state the target system and planet. Kaver S4 eyes did not waver. The target is the Sol system. The planet is Sol 3, a pre-warp world locally known as Earth. For 3 full seconds, there was absolute silence. Then the chamber erupted. It was not a roar of anger, but a confused, disbelieving chatter. Counselor Tevek of the insectoid HiveNet buzzed loudly. Confirm coordinates. Sol system? The yellow star in the Orion Spur? Confirmed, Kaver stated. That is a Class 2 death world. Pre-warp, divided political entities, said Scholar Mlara, her feathered crest rising in agitation. She called up the planetary file. A blue-green sphere filled a holoscreen. Data scrolled beside it. Atmospheric composition, normal gravity, carbon-based dominant species. Homo sapiens. Technology level. Primitive fission power. Rudimentary orbital presence. No shield technology. No hyperdrive capability. They have not yet unified their own planetary government. Elder Elrin's large, liquid eyes blinked slowly. Ambassador Kaver, the Imperium's military strength is considerable. Yet our records show the Sol system possesses no rare minerals, no stable hyperlane nexuses, no strategic value whatsoever. The dominant species has not even achieved spacefaring unification. This annexation would consume vast resources for, by all metrics, zero gain. Please clarify the Imperium's objective. Kaver stood straighter. Our objectives are our own. The annexation will proceed. We expect the Council to respect the non-interference directive regarding pre-warp worlds during a recognized military action. The directive was a real rule. It was meant to prevent meddling in developing cultures, but it also prevented the Council from legally stopping another species from conquering one. But to use it for this? This is absurd. Counselor Bren of the Stout Gromites slammed a heavy fist on his console. Your economy is strained, Kaver. Your people are facing resource shortages. You would waste ships, fuel, and soldiers on a mudball full of primitives? Have your leaders lost their minds? The blunt question hung in the air. It was what everyone was thinking. To invade a planet that offered nothing but trouble was the act of a desperate or an insane government. Kaver did not react to the insult. Our minds are clear. Our will is decided. The fleets are already en route. The communication is concluded. He gave a short, sharp bow and turned, walking stiffly from the chamber without another word. The silence he left behind was heavier than before. Elder Elrin called for order. The Velinar have made their declaration under the laws we all uphold. We can observe, but we cannot directly intervene unless the humans achieve warp flight during the conflict, which is statistically impossible in the time frame. So we just watch them die? Scholar Mlara asked, her voice soft with distress. We must understand why, Elrin said. Dispatch an observation probe. Maximum stealth. Record everything. There is a piece to this puzzle we are not seeing. On Earth, the day was ordinary. In South Korea, at the high-altitude observatory on Mauna Kea, astronomer Yuna Kim was finishing a long, quiet shift. Her eyes were tired from staring at data on her monitors, tracking the gentle dance of distant galaxies. Her colleague, Min Cho, a former military data analyst now working on satellite tracking, was brewing another pot of terrible coffee in the corner. Yuna, go home. The stars will still be there tomorrow, Min said, not looking up from his own screen, which showed global satellite health statuses. In a minute, Yuna murmured. Her program was finishing a deep space sweep. As the final data packet processed, a cluster of warnings flashed on a subsidiary monitor. She frowned. That's odd. What is? The orbital debris tracking array. I'm getting multiple false returns. Objects appearing in high geosynchronous orbit, then vanishing. Like a glitch. She recalibrated the system and ran it again. Min brought his coffee over and looked at her screen. The warnings flashed again. A dozen, then 24 small signatures, appearing for a nanosecond at impossible velocities and altitudes, then disappearing. That's not debris. Debris doesn't do that. It's a sensor ghost. Maybe solar interference. But Yuna was a meticulous scientist. She cross-referenced with the European and Japanese space agency feeds, accessing open-source networks. She saw the same tiny fleeting anomalies on their logs, timed exactly with hers. A cold finger traced her spine. Min, it's on all of them simultaneously. Min's relaxed posture vanished. He sat down hard at the terminal next to her, his fingers flying across the keyboard. He pulled in raw radar data, ignoring the processed filters. The screen filled with chaotic noise, but within it, he saw a pattern. Faint, distorted, but real. Large, solid objects, holding position just beyond the moon's orbit. Their stealth technology was almost perfect, but not quite. They were leaking a tiny, almost undetectable energy signature. Those aren't ours, Min whispered. And they're not anyone else's. Before they could process it further, the news feeds on another monitor erupted. Every major network, every social media platform, was flooded with the same image. Taken from a high-altitude weather balloon over Shanghai, then from a tourist's telescope in Cairo, then from 1,000 camera phones in New York. Ships, enormous, dagger-shaped vessels of dark metal, hanging silently in the sky over every major city on the planet. They made no sound. They emitted no light. They just sat there, casting long, cold shadows on the streets below. Panic, slow and then all at once, began to spread. Traffic stopped. People poured into the streets, pointing, screaming, filming. World leaders went into emergency meetings. Military forces worldwide were put on their highest alert. Fighter jets were scrambled in 12 countries. The ships did nothing. In the UN headquarters, a young South Korean liaison officer named Jiho Park was trying to make sense of the chaos. Reports flooded his secure terminal, all saying the same thing. Unidentified spacecraft. No communication, no hostile action. His phone rang incessantly. He took a call from his superior in Seoul, his voice tense but controlled. No, sir. No demands. No attacks. They're just present. He looked at a live feed from Tokyo, where one of the dark ships blotted out the sun over Shibuya Crossing. The silence from the ships was more terrifying than any attack. Back at the observatory, Yuna and Min watched the news in stunned silence. Min pointed a shaking finger at his own screen, which still showed the raw radar data. They're not just over cities, Yuna. Look, they're everywhere. In a grid, a perfect global grid. Yuna understood. This wasn't a random appearance. This was an deployment, an occupation of near-Earth space. But to what end? The question from the Galactic Council echoed, unanswered, across the stars, and now in the hearts of billions on Earth. Have they lost their minds? The first part of the invasion was not fire nor fury. It was silence. And in that silence, the whole world held its breath, waiting for the screen.